just going to do something fun. Ready? It's going to take about 20 seconds.
Welcome to The Joy of Living, featuring your host, Barry Shore. In this time of busy and rush, we don't always take the time to appreciate the life that we have and the love of those around us. Now, the ambassador of joy invites you to take a moment, take an hour, and find the joy of living. Here is Barry Shore.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Now, how can I make the categorical statement, wonderful Dr. Diana, Maura, and Lori, that everybody, the thousands of people watching are all good-looking? Because by definition, if they tuned in to our webinar on marriage, then they're always looking for and finding the good. That's a good-looking person, right? Looking for the good and finding it. And we have good in abundance, and amazing, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, wondrous women who have such goodness to share. So I already mentioned to Maura, I got absolution, you should know, Lori, and Diane, I got rabbinic dispensation from her. And I'm going to ask you that I was booked by my PR people on a radio interview show at about a half hour after, in the middle of our webinar. Can you imagine that? And Maura says, go for it. And Diane says, go for it. And Maura, I don't know if you know, but you're not, you're muted.
Oh, how do I do that?
No, Lori, you're fine.
Oh.
Maura's muted. Can you see it now, Maura?
I'm with you. Okay.
She'd be unmuted. Okay. And we got glorious sunshine throughout the country. Diane has been waiting for this for months, right? I mean, and it's not going to stop now. No more rain, no clouds. It's all sunshine from here on in, kid. And Maura lives with sunshine in Southern Florida anyway. And Lori, you and I are enjoying and digging these 80-degree weather days here in Southern California. So it's really cool. So I'm just going to make mention to everybody that my error, mea culpa, we're going to have to be a truncated show today, only about a half hour, because I'm on a radio show out of Denver. Is it Denver or Boulder? Forget where. Has a big reach, though. And they want to talk to me about relieving and reducing, mitigating stress. And I have 3 wonderful practical things to do. Well, you know what 3 looks like. So what we're going to do is just going to jump right in. This is the 3rd edition of this particular webinar, which is titled Don't Complain, Don't Blame. And it is really fascinating. We've got lots of questions. If you remember, and nobody does, of course, except for me, that we left off last month with our intrepid heroes talking about hygiene or low gene, odors, living in closer quarters. Again, now, thank God, with windows open and able to go in the backyard, and even the mindset, the pandemic leaving us, both physically, mentally, and spiritually, everybody's feeling that ability to expand the consciousness and such. We have a number of questions that we might not even be able to get to because we only have a half hour, but the questions are around masks, vaccine, and March Madness. I mean, people are actually really digging what we do. They're asking us questions about very fascinating things. Actually, we might have to do masks and vaccines next time, and we'll do just a little bit about hygiene. Now, I just realized we sort of have to discuss March Madness.
Yeah.
Because it's still March, and if we do it, next month's April, you can't discuss March Madness in April, right?
Right.
And with all we know, the winter and such. So I'm going to make a full confession, even though I am a male and I do enjoy sports. It's going to be hard to admit this, but I've never, capital N, followed March Madness basketball. Never. It's true. Okay. Lori likes it a lot, I guess. Maybe the kids do on your husband and such. Diane, I don't think so. Maura, you do probably because Jimmy loves basketball.
Jimmy's been watching. I have not. And every team except for Gonzaga last night, he called the wrong way. So
So I heard, only because I listen to these things, because you can't be in the world not hear certain stuff, the upsets and things happening, and the 9th seed beat the 1st seed and such. And that's the genius of sports. The genius, I think, of sports is, okay, sportsmanship. Yeah, very nice. You throw a punch once in a while, but other than that, it's really, about team and camaraderie and may the best team win, male, female, in between, whatever they call them. But the issue at hand is that in sport, one never knows. The genius of the let's say the final 4 or 8 or even 12 is that in any one game, any team can beat any other. Because that's the beauty of professional or even high-level college sports, that the how should we call it? The athletic ability of almost all the people is pretty equal. Granted, there are some superstars, there's no question. But when people coalesce and you see things happening in real time in a team environment, the flow is so beautiful. And I use this as a jumping off point because we're talking about marriage. And I think it has great application. Now, marriage is a team sport. Let's be blunt. Generally speaking, it's 2 people, usually a man and a woman. From our perspective, we like that best. But it doesn't matter. It's the ability to have that flow, and especially when you're in a family situation. So coming up next couple of days for Maura and Lori, it's going to be Holy Day, Easter. And for Diane and myself, it's Passover and the final days of Passover, the splitting of the Red Sea. I mean, if there's anything iconic in still left in Western civilization, I think there are 3 pieces. One is this particular song. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. Right? Some version of that. Okay, that's one. The second, of course, is the 10 Commandments, smashing them, right? Okay, that happens in another 49 days. And of course, one of the biggest ones, and it's been instilled in, I think it's Universal Studios. I had to go one time. I don't even like this kind of stuff. Had to go one time to bring people from out of town to Universal Studios because they want to see that stuff. And apparently one of the rides is you go in golf carts, 3 or 4 or 5 of them together, and they have a body of water, and then somebody stands up and says, "Part the sea." And the water, if you've not been to Universal, so I'm describing for everybody, and the waters part, and you drive through on dry land, of course, and everybody goes, "Oh, wow, this must how it was done." Okay, it may or may not have, but the point is, the splitting of the sea is iconic. Everybody knows about it. Even people who have nothing to do with Judaism or Christianity have heard about it. And to make things even a little more woo-woo, think about it. This week, or just until today, the eyes of the entire world have been on one place, Egypt. Egypt? No offense, but nobody cares about Egypt. Egypt, it's not even a backwater of a backwater. It's Egypt, right? But what happened? Egypt got a gallstone. That's what I'll call it. Something happened, and this massive behemoth something ends up blocking one of the most important trade routes in the world and causes massive disruption. Now, I don't know if you read about it, how it happened. It happened because of an unusually powerful sandstorm. So when people ask the question, "Oh, come on, these things in the Bible about frogs and blood and lice and things, stories." Well, stories. Stuff happens. I mean, it happened. One of the main arteries of commercial traffic in the world got blocked. So I use that as opposed to what we just talked about, which is flow. So for us, the reason we're doing this marriage webinar, and you're dedicating your time, and it's greatly appreciated by many, many hundreds of people, actually thousands of people who like what we do, is that we help to articulate or give insights into flow. That's how I see it. I could think of some other analogy I won't say, but we enable flow. We'll say it that way. Because we're talking today about don't complain, don't blame, which is one of the more important aspects of living, not just in harmony, but in creating harmony, because that's what I think a marriage really does. It's not just for the 2 people or the 5 or the 8 people in a marriage situation or family. It's really what happens in the concentric circles emanating from that remarkably powerful relationship. And when that relationship is positive and purposeful and powerful and pleasant, it touches our country. I think our country has some unique situations and challenges these days because of our relationships in marriage. I think they go hand in glove. So I'm going to begin with March Madness because Lori said, yeah, and it is March, or as I say in the old country, March. Remember that, Maura? March Madness. Diane, that's inside baseball for Bostonians, right? March. It's hard to even listen to people sometimes when they speak so fast with Bostonian accents, and I think, wow, I really grew up there. So this question came in, and I thought it just tickled me. It really tickled me. So apparently it's a husband and a wife, and they have, for reasons unknown, they didn't tell me, nobody told me. I don't know if it was the husband or the wife sent this, but I got the question actually from 3 different people, very similar circumstance, that they had either a brother-in-law or a close family friend staying in the house with them through pandemic. Now, apparently they had a fairly large house, but separate quarters, but they had another person in the house who was, we call them fans, but they really are fanatics. Now, you know the word fan is a diminution of fanatic, right? So this person was a fanatic for a particular team. Well, the wife of the husband was a fanatic for a different team. And apparently it got so difficult, they couldn't be in the same room together. They argued. They were, one of the, I got 3 letters. One of them picked up something and threw at the other one. They didn't tell me who threw what. Now I'm hoping and imagining it wasn't some brass paperweight, but my jaw dropped because, again, I'm distant. I don't watch it. I don't really care in the sense of, hey, to me it's sport and I enjoy it. But what do you answer to people? How do you in any way separate them and find some mechanism of having 2 adults speak to each other without getting crazy? I think that's really the question. I'm paraphrasing, reframing. So we're going to go right to Dr. Diane Medved to begin on this because she's a sports fanatic anyway. All know that. So Diane, who do you think is going to win?
Well, no. Luckily, neither I nor my husband are sports fanatics or spend much time watching sports. So it's hard to imagine someone being so emphatic about their support for a team, right?
That's how I see it.
But I can imagine people getting upset about, say, 2 political sides, and that we've had recently in our country, where families or friendships have been dissolved because someone was for Trump and someone was for Biden, or some combination thereof that was incompatible, where one person lost respect for the other. I think that's a bit more serious. Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to a team, you can each watch the game in a separate room, even if you've got to buy another TV, or you could listen and go out walking and say whatever you want. I don't think that sports is on the same caliber as many of the other things that divide people. And I think that's important to talk about. Anyone in the sphere of these 2 warring fanatics ought to say, hey, let's call a truce. Both sides can win some of the time. Both sides can lose some of the time. And the consequences are so small. That's the thing. If you can, as they used to say, I think they used to say, it's not who wins or loses, it's how you play the game. And if you look at this in terms of a process, which is during the game, someone's going to get ahead, someone's going to get behind, but the ultimate consequence is so minimal that you can step back and say, we know it's only a game. I mean, what kind of immature people are going to make it so difficult for the rest of their day and the rest of their community and family? Not likely. I think we see this more with some of these other divisions like politics, or sometimes people will say, I won't come to a certain event out of spite. And I think one thing that we have to look at in every relationship, especially marriage, is stubbornness. Stubbornness.
This is outstanding. Let me put you on pause just for a moment. I want to recap something you just said, because you went right to a much more important and meaningful situation when you bring in politics. But let's go to the next, this middle level, an event. Let's leave politics out there, because that's, I think, I'd like to devote 1 or 2 sessions to that, because that's still a very touchy issue and needs to have more discussion. But let's take your point about an event, a family event that someone would not attend because of either a real slight, a presumed slight, or maybe even not a slight, but the other person looked at them cross-eyed and affects a family.
Unfortunately, that happens too often. And I think that, what do we need in this COVID time? What we need is some peace of mind, some tranquility, some relief for our anxiety. And what are we getting? We're getting more and more things to divide us and to make us compete. You've got your vaccine and I don't get it yet, and it's not fair, you've cut the line. There's so many different things that are impeding our tranquility. And I think it's so important that we step backward and we look at things from a broad, long-term perspective. After this is all over, say in the next year, is this the relationship that I want to have with this person? Is this what we want to have going on? And when it comes to a slight, some people can build, this is what I try and teach people in therapy, to build a rubber bumper around yourself so that things that could be perceived as slights will just bounce off. They'll just bounce off because you inside yourself are comfortable. You're at peace with yourself. And once someone's at peace with him or herself, then they can see the world as not out to get them. They're not paranoid anymore. And I thought it's kind of part of this issue. Stubbornness, paranoia, and fear. People are afraid to be hurt, and they're afraid to be rejected. Sometimes it's FOMO, fear of missing out and feeling not included. And so there's lots of personal things going on. And this isn't about a game, and it probably isn't even about the event. It's about one's own insecurities and feelings and lack of communication with the other person about the underlying modus of what's going on between them. And lots of times people just have developed habits that are cracked. They're just bad. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the modality that I use, tries to do. It makes people think about, okay, here's how you would handle this situation. Where in this process is it going wrong? Where are you making a mistake in your thinking? And if you want to really think it in terms of how is it going to help me in the long term, what thoughts can I replace those negative or unproductive thoughts with that is going to make it? And if you do the rubber bumper thing, that's a good start. Because
I want to interrupt you on that, because you just said something. I'm going to give a visual. As a kid, we used to go to carnivals and little circuses that would come around to the area. So Brockton, we used to drive to Brockton, Maura. You remember Brockton? And they had
I had not been there.
And they had these bumper cars. Remember bumper cars, kids? Now, as a guy, maybe girls, did you go in bumper cars also?
All the time.
Bumper cars are so much fun, because I think that's the image that I'm getting, Diane. It's that ability to be aggressive with full knowledge that you can't hurt anybody because you don't want to. All you want to do is bump them. You want to just have a little fun and move inside. You don't want to hurt anybody. You don't want to be hurt. And I love that image of the rubber bumper. Where's your rubber bumper? So that's very good.
And then they will bounce off, and nobody's the worse for it. And you don't have to impugn negative thoughts behind it. You can just say, okay, we're going to have a tussle and no one's going to be hurt. And I'm going to love this person anyway.
Wait a minute. I like that one a lot. If you get these two fanatics, this one is for who's playing at the moment? And give me two teams. Lori, Maura, who's playing?
Well, Loyola was, and I got out of it when they stopped because I went there.
Oh, I like
don't know.
Loyola also.
You did.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But anyway, you can hear that, we're going to tussle, but okay, then it's over. We're in the end, we're rubber bumpers. That was great, Diane. Thank you. Maura, what would you like to say about the March Madness?
I think the question kept morphing and morphing. I'll tell you my first, and I was going to say ask it again, but that's all right. When you first started, it did. It started with one question and went on to another. The first thought I had was, because I really don't follow sports, I could never disagree with my husband who enjoys it. And he's not that way in terms of that his team's got to win. But an interesting thought came up, and this is what we just talked about. Remember the old adage, when you're in mixed companies, don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion. Now, when you're talking about sports here, we don't have that issue at home, but I will tell you this. I've had friends whose husbands are so crazy about sports, and they're arguing with people in the family. They literally get out of control, and it'll affect them for weeks. Interesting. And then I was coming up with all the arguing they do in Cuba. I think it's the one area that people are allowed to discuss and debate in public, and it's sports. But funny thing about this, I thought maybe we need to add three things, right? It's politics, it's religion, and now sports. Right. And there truly are some people that need to be right, but I think they all point to the same thing. And that is this. There are some people that they attach themselves to certain concepts or dogmas or ideas or alliances, and they must be right. No matter what, they have to be right. And there's something in the personality that needs to be vindicated, needs to be right.
I think vindictive also, but yeah.
They could be vindictive in the process of trying to be
the same root.
But do you know what I was thinking? I know you're the ambassador of joy. You know I'm the ambassador of happiness. I remember a long time ago asking this question to people. They all answer the same way, but not everybody takes their own advice. I said, would you rather be, if you're given the choice, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? And everybody says, oh, I'd rather be happy. But guess what? People want to be right. So here's what I would say, and this is just my choosing. You could try to be right, or you could choose to be at peace. And when necessary, choose to forgive in order to be at peace. Diane just commented, look at it long form. Maybe one day your team's going to win, another day your team's going to lose. One day is good, one day is bad. But really, if I could choose to be away, I would want to be that person of peace. And I would want to be that person of forgiveness. So that's an allowance I have for people. I may not always agree with people, but I have this single decision. I don't care what it is, even if it's never happened, I'm going to forgive, because to do that puts me in a much greater place, emotionally, psychologically, socially. And if I could live in that place, then suddenly, rather than being part of the conflict, I become a different form of an influence, and I'm literally neutralizing and bringing peace. So that's my take from one who really doesn't follow sports.
No, Diane came to this point of peace. Laura comes to this point of peace. I mean, this is Holy Week, so it's a great time for forgiveness and peace and such. Lori, sprinkle some holy water on us, kid, and what do you think about March Madness?
So one thing about sports, when I got married, in my vows, I had to say that I would allow my husband to watch Penn State, whatever kind of sport it is, on any day he wants to watch it. It was in my vows because he's a freak of sports. But here's the thing, what we're talking about with sports, with religion, with what was the third thing? Sports, religion, and politics. All of it is not me over here by my little self. I can talk about it all day long. My husband can talk about these sports things all day long. Someone could talk about Biden or Trump or whoever. And, a sports person could sit here and go, well, that coach should have done this, this, this. And they argue about it. Well, this coach is better because of this. It's like, you will never solve that problem. It's an endless option. You have no control. Right. But what you do have control over is you. what you say, what you do, and how you behave. So if you're in a home with a whole bunch of people watching the sports game and everyone's yelling at the TV, take your little body and go upstairs and go turn on the TV by yourself. That's what I do, because that happens a lot here. And I leave and no one even notices I'm gone. It's like 4 hours later, my husband's like, where's my wife? And I've been gone I could even leave and he won't even notice. I'll be like, bye, and kiss him and he won't even notice. But you can't change these people. So whoever wrote in, who's talking about their husband who's so sick and crazy about this one thing, sports or March Madness, and spends 20 hours a day watching it, okay, it's going to end and then it'll be on next year. So let him do his own thing. You can't control him. This is what he likes. Let him scream at the TV or yell or freak, and then just worry about what you can control. Worry about you.
So this comes to the idea of peace as well. And I will tell you that one of the letters we got in was it was a husband who wrote about his wife. She was the fanatic, and it was his friend or her brother-in-law that was staying with them. So it was a woman and a man, because I think there are no roles anymore of men in sports or women in sports. I mean, I think it goes to, like you say, it's personality. There's something there in the makeup, and it's clinging to something. I want to be right, and if my team doesn't win, well, that gets my dander up. If anybody knows where dander is, even, but it's. These issues that you've been raising, all three of you, are, I find them quite wonderful. And we're coming full circle to this ability to, I think, the greatest ability to diffuse blaming and complaining is what you've been saying, finding peace and within oneself. And to oftentimes diffuse the situation by refusing to engage. You know, if you see yourself getting quite possible, not always can happen, that you can see yourself and say, that's really not what I want to do. That's not who I want to be, like Maura says, right? And Diane can find the modality and say, I want to unplug that piece and look at it and say, no, that's not me. I don't want that habit. I want to be me in the sense of giving, loving, caring. I mean, and that's what I think our webinars are about, by the way, and why people are attracted to it. Because we're not talking about the impossible, even though it may seem like that. What do you mean? You want me to be a holy person? Yes, but holy in a different way. Holy can be spelled three ways. Holy, that's the holy, the thing there. Holy, WHOLLY. Being whole, and holy, HOLEY. You got a hole inside of you. You got a lack. If you have a hole, it means you have a lack. And people don't like lack. I'd rather fill it up with something good. I want to be seen as a fountain, not a drain. And I think you all three agree with me that we live in a digital world. And the beauty of living in a digital world is that you get to use that term digital, unlike analog. Analog means things can go along, and like an old TV set. I don't know if none of you are old enough to know this, but there used to be these TV sets where you had things called tubes in the back. And if one tube went out, guess what you could do? You can have a tester and test and find out which one is good, pull it out, go to a store. I don't know if people ever do things anymore. Go to a store and get that tube, put it back in. Voila, it works. Whereas in a digital world, you can't do that. Digital either works or it doesn't. That's the essence of digital. 0, 1. Phones, they either work or they don't. You don't repair phones usually. You can repair screens, but not phones. But in a digital world where you have a hole, you can fill it. And the ability to choose, you're either a fountain or a drain. That's how people are. You can detect it. If somebody's being a fountain, and usually a fountain of goodness, that's what I call a fog, you want to be a fountain of goodness, well, that's a pretty cool thing, right? If you want to be a drain of goodness, then you're a dog. Okay, some people like dogs, but in certain cases not. So I say this idea of holy, holy, and holy, like we say, Diane, holy, holy, holy. Yeah. You can say it at church too, right?
Huh?
kid got it from the Jews. But anyway, holy, holy, holy. This is the right time, place, and idea to discuss March Madness, which causes madness, but we're trying to learn in our corner here to beam to the world and say, you know something? We're going to really help people find peace, be themselves, and therefore bring more joy to the world. So again, with your permission, my dear, wonderful friends, comrades, oh my gosh, we're falling into the button trap. I mean, sorry. I'm going to take my leave and do the show. As Maura said, I have to bring the ambassador of joy to the world. So I embrace you all with a hug. This is a from hug, right? And remember, hug stands for harmonizing unlimited giving. You like that one? Harmonize unlimited giving. So 1, 2, 3. And our blessing to everyone. Go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad, go make a difference, and we'll see you next month. And we'll talk about masks and vaccines.
Fun.
Okay,
See
bye,
you all.
kids.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Happy
Thank you,
holy,
Karen.
happy holy, happy holy to you.
Thank you.